One of the big things I've always tried to do is connect with fans because as a toy collector myself, I always felt that companies didn't necessarily reach out to the toy collector, the fans, the buying audience as much as possible. And I've really extended that with this YouTube channel in the fact that I comment on every comment. I try to respond, and sometimes I get comments, which is sort of the equivalent of mail, that make great videos. And in the case of Andrew McClellan, he asked me if there's instances where toy lines have literally died because of poor character choice. Well, the answer is yes. This happens all the time. Well, maybe not all the time, but more frequently than one might realize. So, yeah, there's your answer. Wow, that was a short YouTube video. I mean, okay, I guess you wanted more than just yes as an answer. All right, fine, let's go into some examples. All right, so what we as collectors call peg warmers, meaning when there's a figure, like one figure, and it's over and over and over again, and it's clogging up pegs and keeping fresh product from shipping, it drives us crazy, right? I mean, it's one of the banes of toy collecting. Well, this isn't just something that toy collectors have an issue with. Everybody in the industry has an issue with this. And while we as collectors call this a peg warmer, the term the industry uses is a mix issue, not an issue of Tom Mix. A mix issue. See what I did there? All right. So yes. So what causes a mix issue? Well, or a peg warmer, shall we say? A lot of things. It's not just one thing. Let's run through a couple of the main reasons why this happens. So one reason is you can go back into production on a toy that's already out there. That's the reason you don't see this that much, because it almost always leads to peg warming and a mix issue. Because, as I've explained in a couple of videos, using my very friendly Venn diagram, well, let's say that that pink circle represents the total number of people who have a figure or want, the figure. And the blue diagram, or blue circle, is the MOQ, the minimum quantity to produce. Well, that means that only that small amount in the middle, that purple, is what's going to sell, the amount of people who want it. That's why reissues don't work. All right, the other reason that you get mixes that stick at retail is characters that are just not exciting from hit movies. The movie could be a hit, but there could be a character that, is not a hit. Or you could have an entire movie that's not a hit, but is planned to be a hit. And again, this can cause mix issues. Now, of course, most mix issues are dealt with through clearance by marking product down after maybe a movie doesn't do well. And usually subsequent lines, like in the case of Green Lantern, there was going to be more kid product with more basic figures like Stell and a yellow Sinestro and some of the other aliens, as well as more collector product with additional waves of movie masters. Well, unfortunately, because the movie did not perform, all of this was canceled. So, bad content and bad mixes can cancel lines. So, if your content fails, you're basically, trying to get out of Dodge and clear out the product as fast as possible. All right, but what happens when it is a hit movie or hit content, but you just have bad character selection? Well, this can stop lines in their tracks too, which is why the difference between a good brand manager and a sort of mediocre brand manager is one who knows their brand. So let's look at Star Wars, right? Star Wars is a mega hit. And if you will, Episode 1 is what sort of kicked off the modern renaissance. Well, actually, I guess the Dark Horse comics and Timothy Zahn novels. But as far as new movies, Episode 1 was, the big deal. And we all remember that, right? Back in 1999, running out to get our Comtech figures and waiting in line at Sniff, Toys R Us. Gosh, I miss you. And, scooping up all those Jar Jars and Mace Windu's and Rick Olis and, all those other characters that we had never heard of, but were going to be in the movie and were in the trailer. And, well, the thing was, Phantom Menace, much like Bella Thorne, made $1 million in the first 24 hours. This was like a record for the toy industry. And everybody was talking about this, how Phantom Menace made so much money in 24 hours. So when the movie was reissued 9 years later in 3D, right before the Disney acquisition, well, the idea was to double down and say, well, it made so much money the first time, it'll make so much money the second time. The problem was that was about souveniring. Go see the video. The movie itself, and I can paint you a picture here, wasn't as big of a hit. It was just new Star Wars content, and it was the novelty, hence the souveniring. So when the 3D movie version re-release came out and was accompanied by vintage series figures, Well, these figures didn't sell as well, especially because they were overshipped. And a big reason was because they were comparing the numbers to what Phantom Menace did the first time when it was released in 1999. And pardon the blurry pictures, but there's not too many pictures of these figures hanging at retail that I could find. So here's one. But yeah, they were everywhere, and they clogged pegs, not because, it wasn't one character that was a bad selection, it was sort of all of them, because Phantom Menace characters are not the most popular in all of Star Wars, or, the whole franchise. There are characters that are incredibly popular. Darth Vader, Chewbacca, C-3PO are always at the top of the lists. Well, when Disney bought the property, they decided to double down and see if they could outdo the Phantom Menace with a movie that was even less popular. Okay, no, kidding. That wasn't what their goal was, but it kind of is what wound up happening. And when Episode 8 came out, the characters were even less popular. So, again, a good example of the brand overall being popular, but the individual characters that were released were not. Granted, in the case of Episode 8, these were unproven characters, and that happens all the time with a new movie. You're going to release figures and hope they're popular. So you can't really fault Disney, Hasbro, Lucasfilm for betting on all of these characters. But the point is, they didn't work. The movie was not as popular as, say, Episode 4, 5, and 6, and the accompanying action figures. Hence that Han Solo and Boba Fett figure that shipped with this assortment and did sell. The original characters from Episode 8 wound up having to get clearanced out, often at a fraction of their original SRP. So, yes, this is basically, it's because of events like this, of character selection not maximizing the most popular characters, and whether you're betting on new characters performing or re-releasing old characters that are already shown to be less popular, like Episode 1 when 3D was released, well, you wind up with lines that don't sell as well, and you need things like this, like humorous sales concepts, in order to move the product, because you have to clear it out to make room for new. And this is why we don't see as much Star Wars at retail right now. It's a perfect example. So going back to the original question, yes, can character selection derail a line? And I actually did a video on this. Go check it out on this channel, where I talk a little bit more in detail about how character selection has affected things like the Star Wars Vintage line. If Star Wars is going to continue to dominate retail, you have to just focus on the top characters. And obviously, the more Muppet you go, the more popular the character is. So essentially, every line should have Salacious Crumb in it. And if you do that, you're going to sell way more toys to kids. All right, let me give you another example, one that doesn't have to do with the content succeeding or character selection, but rather a mistake made by the brand manager. And that brand manager would happen to be me. So, when I was at Mattel running DCU Classics, well, we wanted to keep it going and expand it, and as a fan of the Justice League Unlimited and Bruce Timm line, or Bruce Timm inspired line, I wanted to keep this line going. So, we had a great relationship with Target that Target had exclusive on six-packs that no one else was doing. So Target really liked the brand. It was doing well. They even reordered the six-pack, and Mattel refreshed it the following year with new versions of characters in different colors, minimal new tooling, or actually in this case, no new tooling, I think. I don't know. Did Wonder Woman get a new head in this pack? It's hard to remember when she was introduced. This might be the first time. Either way, the point being is the idea was to expand the retail presence of the DC line at retail and give Target an ownable segment, and Justice League Unlimited was a great way to do that, because the show was now off the air, and it was going to be aimed a little bit more towards collectors, but you still had to have lots of main characters in there for the kids, like Superman and Batman. And that way the adjunctive characters could sell to collectors. And this is all part of constructing a case pack. And as I said, a good brand manager or a mediocre brand manager understands their brand and how to create a case pack. In the example of Marvel Legends here, you can see Spider-Man is doubled up. He's the only one double, because yes, he should sell the best to kids. All the rest of the figures are a little bit more collector-friendly. So that's why Spider-Man is doubled in the case pack. He's going to sell better than all the others, ideally. Well, the brand manager on Justice League Unlimited, which is me, I made a huge error in the Excel spreadsheet. Well, it was a small error, but it was a big error that essentially I meant to do 3 Supermans in the case pack. And instead, because I literally made a mistake, I put the number 3 next to Kilowog. And when the case pack went into production, there were 3 Kilowogs instead of 3 Supermans and 1 Superman. So Yeah, basically, unless you were a huge fan of Kilowog, which I'm sure there are people who are huge fans of Kilowog, but it was meant to have more Superman to sell better. And because I overshipped Kilowog due to my literally putting the wrong number in the wrong cell in an Excel sheet, I totally almost killed the line. It took a lot of finagling and groveling to keep it at retail because Kilowog overshipping and my accidentally doing that, putting a number in the wrong box, something as simple as that, almost killed this line entirely. Luckily, we were able to save it. But yeah, case packs with mix issues or peg warming happens all the time, and there are tons of reasons for this. It really is still the number one reason when a content or movie, TV show doesn't perform well. But going back into production on a figure that people already have, or simply a brand manager making a mistake, there are lots of things that can cause this, and no one direct, rationale. It's all basically because there's a character that doesn't sell. It affects everyone. No one in the industry likes it, from the retailers to the manufacturers to the collectors and the kids and moms and dads. So essentially, it's all about just not giving up and trying again. You learn from your mistakes and you keep moving forward. I hope this video explained why mix issues and peg warming happens. If you have other questions or I didn't go into enough detail, let me know. I'm happy to do a follow-up. As I said, I comment back to every comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.